Hello, I'm Jordan. I'm going to do a tag today. This is the spoiler tag, created by Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and I was kindly tagged by Jack over at the Rambling Raconteur. Um, it's been making the rounds on BookTube recently, and I've really enjoyed watching other people do it, so here goes. The first prompt is, what do you consider a spoiler? I don't generally put a whole lot of importance in author intent, but the best definition I could come up with is a spoiler is something that is anything that the author assumed that you wouldn't know going into the story. Prompt number two is, does the genre you're reading affect what you consider to be a spoiler? I think it probably does, but I think what makes this prompt interesting is kind of thinking about genres that perhaps aren't considered to be susceptible to spoilers. For example, Jack brought up poetry. And the more I was thinking about it, I realized that poetry absolutely, I think, can be spoiled, particularly narrative poetry, of course. He brought up the Metamorphoses, and my translation, just like his, each book in the poem begins with a really long synopsis added by the translator. And I realized, like he did, that that was actually not destroying, but had a negative effect on my experience of the poem, so I stopped reading them. So I don't particularly see the point of that. However, Fairy Queen by Edmund Spencer has a tiny little quatrain at the beginning of each canto that summarizes what happens in that canto. And I think I actually really like that because I think it's fun. The contrast between the tiny summary and the sprawling, meandering canto itself is kind of fun. It's really interesting to see what he's going to do with that very skeletal summary that he provides at the very beginning of the canto. So in that case, I really like it. But as far as outside of narrative poetry, I thought of Robert Browning, particularly his dramatic monologues. There's almost always at the end of them, there's this wonderful turn. It doesn't necessarily change everything in the poem, but it's at the end for a reason. And I feel like you wouldn't want to take away the experience of that reading it for the first time. I think that's important with some of those poems. And then, of course, dramatic monologues got me thinking about Shakespeare and whether or not you can spoil a Shakespeare play. And I think you absolutely can. And I think we tend to forget, especially people who get caught up in the Shakespearean authorship conspiracy theories, which I think are a little silly. I think that we tend to forget that Shakespeare, I think, very clearly considered himself an entertainer first and foremost. As I understand it, there's no indication that he ever intended to publish the sonnets, and there's no indication that he had any interest in preserving any of his work for posterity. I think he wrote plays, knowing that it was not a particularly respected profession at his time. He could have been a professional poet. He chose to write plays, I think, because he knew that he was good at it and because he was making money doing it. Which is not to say that the plays don't hold up to rereadings. Of course, they absolutely do. I've reread Shakespeare more than any other writer. But I think we're doing him a disservice if we ignore the fact that they were written for a restless, unruly audience. For example, if it's still possible for someone to go into King Lear, not knowing that in Act 5, Lear is going to walk out carrying the dead body of Cordelia, wouldn't you want to preserve that experience for them? I think that certainly counts for something. So anyways, that's my thoughts on that. But I also wanted to bring up essays. I haven't seen this brought up. Can you spoil an essay? I thought of course, Montaigne. My translation of Montaigne comes with the translator included, similar to the Metamorphoses, included a summary at the beginning of each essay, which is helpful in that it provides it contextualizes the essay so you kind of know what Montaigne is dealing with, but I feel like that would be better served in the notes, because what I love about the essays personally is the unstructured, unpretentious, conversational style of them. They feel like having a conversation with someone who lived 450 years ago, and I think that summarizing them kind of does violence to that. So I would say that yes, you can spoil an essay as well. So anyways, moving on finally to prompt 3, all the best bits are in the trailer. Sometimes a synopsis can be too detailed. Do you research books prior to reading or prefer to go in blind? I used to do a lot of research before I read books. I stopped doing that because I do think I have learned that I am susceptible to spoilers personally, but it's also perhaps not a very attractive quality because I think I have a very unruly ego, and I don't like other people's interpretations to get in the way of whatever brilliant ideas I have about the book on a first impression. It's not a attractive quality, but I do think that's a part of me. Problem number 4 is sometimes the introduction or translator's notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. Has this ever happened to you? I'm sure it has. Can't think of anything, but yeah, I'm sure. I agree with the consensus on book 2, which seems to be that introduction should be afterwards. Problem number 5 is name a time somebody spoiled the novel for you. I can't think of a time that anyone personally that I know has spoiled a novel for me, so I've been very lucky in that regard. 6 is, have you ever spoiled a novel for somebody else? I'm sure I have. When I talk about books, I tend to be very desperate to impress people, so I am sure I have often kind of jumped the gun and revealed something that I shouldn't have just for the sake of trying to expound my own brilliant ideas. It's pathetic. 7. If spoilers ruin novels, are there some authors/genres that you can't read? Everyone seems to be saying mysteries, which makes sense to me. I don't read mysteries because I feel like they're for smart people, and spy novels as well. I have a real hard time keeping track of the characters and all of the hidden secret motives. Same thing with like spy movies or heist movies. I'm always that guy that has no idea what's going on. It's embarrassing. 8 is, when reviewing, are you spoiler free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? I haven't really done a whole lot of reviews on BookTube. I used to review everything I read on Goodreads, and in that case I always assumed that if you're reading the review, you've read the book, which was probably, looking back, that was probably an unfair assumption. Does it limit your ability to discuss? That's a really good question. I think, yeah, to a certain extent it does, but I think some people are very good at giving you almost nothing in regards to the plot of a book, and still really intriguing you with it. Like Katie over at Books and Things, I think, is a master of that. Okay, number 9 is shout out 5 channels you enjoy and tag them. I think everyone has done this. The only person I know of, or that I can think of, that watches my channel that hasn't done it, I don't think, is Tom at Tom LA Books. So I'll go ahead and tag Tom. If you like doing this, go ahead. So that's the spoiler tag. Sorry, that was quite rambly and a whole lot of umming and ahhing, but I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. Have a good day.